we'll find out on Sunday. Is there a reason it took this long? I mean, because I truly believe the way Brian Hoyer's played for the last 6 weeks, the fact that they didn't make a change sooner spoke more to the backup and less to the starter as far as why they really didn't even push that issue until they absolutely had no choice.
Yeah, I can't see why you would wait any longer at this point, Jerry. You're still in the playoff hunt. You want to maximize whatever opportunity you have remaining, and the team just has to get behind this guy now and show him that they will give him the same support that they've given Hoyer. That's my only question. Will the entire team come into line now and get behind this guy and give them every possible chance to stay in the playoff race here?
Now, I'll tell you what, I do believe, that's funny that you bring that up, because that's something that some of us have talked about, and I've talked to some friends behind the scenes, is I do believe you got a locker room full of professionals that are going to go out there and do what they've got to do here this weekend. But there is always that question as well. It'll be very interesting to see all the dynamics and how they play out here this week. But again, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know what else. Even if you are an anti-Manziel guy, I just don't know what choice the Browns offense left you after this weekend. Let's talk about that, Bill. You and I haven't talked since that game. Browns and the Colts. Browns defense put not only one of their best efforts of this season on the table, but to me, I believe the Browns put one of their best defensive efforts since their return 15 years ago against the Colts the other day.
And you obviously, just by looking at the stats, you could tell what the story was with this game. 14 of 31 for Hoyer, 140 yards, no TDs. And let me tell you, that's not too good when you consider the offensive skill position talent that Cleveland does have. You should have at least got one passing touchdown on the board. And hey, it's true. The Colts are the Colts. They're not an easy team to play. But you were in a position to make a huge step in the division, like we've talked about for the last few weeks with the logjam, and you just didn't do it.
But defensively, how surprised were you that the Browns were able to control Andrew Luck in the Colts?
I know the defense that they have. I wasn't surprised at all. I was disappointed that they blew such a, and I won't say blew, but
I think they did.
Terrible.
I think that was a good word.
It was such a great. It was such a great defensive effort that they, that was really, to me, if I was in defense, that would have been a devastating loss.
Yeah, and it was. It really was, because, that's when Mike Pettin described it as a kick in the gut. I would agree. Over the last 15 years, we get used to it here as media and fans and all of that in Cleveland, of talking about, well, the Browns should have won, the Browns deserved to win, but they lost, and that's what bad teams do. But this one didn't feel like. This one was truly the kick in the gut, because the Browns really did lay some wood to the Colts for much of that game and just didn't get away with it. And you know what? For those of you that want to keep going back to Brian Hoyer and Manziel and all of that discussion, I was telling my son last night, I said, forget everything else, because Mike Pettin yesterday in his press conference did everything he could do to explain that it was far from just Brian Hoyer, and that he blatantly said the interception was Cameron's fault. And if you want to totally defend Brian Hoyer, the last one was on a throw up at the end of the game. So technically he didn't throw any picks, but he didn't do anything. It doesn't matter. Even if you didn't contribute to lose, you didn't do anything to win. But more than that, if he had just hit the two wide open touchdowns, and I do blame Gordon for slowing down on the one, but Gabriel, no, you overthrew him. If he had just hit those two passes, forget everything else, those two passes, Brian Hoyer is still the starting quarterback this week, because the Browns would have won going away. They would have won by most likely 10 points or more, and there would not be any discussion about changing the quarterback, but he missed, and that's just it. That's just it. He missed the ones that he had to make. And when you get to that point, it's in your head. It has nothing to do with mechanics. It has nothing to do with, are you a good quarterback? It's in your head. You were too worried about throwing it short, so you threw it too long. Either way, you're no longer effective.
And, it's funny because just this one Josh Gordon quote that I have on Sunday, I've got a long way to go to get back as a player, and we have a long way to go as a team. He said, if anybody thought that this was a playoff team, they should rethink that. Now, that says a lot right there.
Yeah, well, I don't know how many of those teammates that have made this a playoff team for the last how many weeks that he was out appreciate that. Josh Gordon has his own issues that are not the reason that Brian Hoyer is not the quarterback, but he didn't help. He has issues.
Right.
And the Browns, I got to tell you, the Browns are having some serious internal conversations about the future of Josh Gordon on this team. I'm just going to be honest with you. We'll talk more about this in the off season and all of that, but I've talked to some people that there is very real conversation about whether the Browns have any interest in going forward in the future with Josh Gordon, just based on things that are not even happening on the football field as well. And it really won't be their decision anyway, because he's a free agent coming up in a year either way. But that's all future stuff right now. And that kind of irks me to hear that statement, because I guarantee you there's members in that locker room that are absolutely not appreciating that quote right there, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because that was a playoff effort defensively. That was a playoff effort in general as a team. I'm not referring to the offense per se, but they stepped up and they played some ball. So I don't know that Joe Thomas, I don't know that Carlos Dansby and Dante Whitner and those guys appreciate a guy who missed the entire season because of something that he did to break the rules, criticizing whether or not this is a playoff caliber team when your play is hurting your team on the football field. Now, I'm just going to say, whether it's Manziel or Hoyer, nobody can deny that the offense has been redundant and regressed since Josh Gordon returned to it. That's not a mistake. That's because instead of having 11 guys moving in sync, you've now got 10 guys kind of moving in sync, one guy who has no clue what he's doing out there, another guy who's off a little bit, and it all equals what you've seen. So, tell me it doesn't work. That's fine. I can tell you that when one part breaks on your car, the rest of it stops working. You can say, well, it doesn't matter. It's not the most important parts. That's fine. But it's usually those little ones that cause you the hell of a repair, and not necessarily when the engine blows. So just keep that in mind. Manziel's going to have to deal with that too. Manziel is going to have to deal with those same issues as well. The difference is, and I mentioned this yesterday, Bill, your thoughts on this. Some people have said Josh Gordon tanked on purpose so that he can see his preferred quarterback play. I'm not going to go that far, although I will be very interested to see the difference in his play with a new quarterback. But I will say this. I have no doubt that Josh Gordon would prefer an athletic quarterback, because Josh Gordon can then be lazy on his routes, because with Brian Hoyer, you have to run your routes right, because he's throwing to a spot, he's expecting a guy to run a certain way, and he doesn't have the improvisational aspect that Johnny Manziel does. That being said, a lazy route runner, of course he appreciates a guy who runs around, because then you can just run around and wave your hand and hope that the guy finds you out there somewhere, which is a lot of how Manziel's college touchdowns worked out. So I do think that it may be a good switch for Josh Gordon. Absolutely, Ron. I'm not almost saying it. I'm exactly saying Josh Gordon would prefer an improvising athletic quarterback so he can be lazy on his routes and still catch the ball. That's absolutely what I'm saying. What do you think about that, Bill?
I can't disagree with that. Ron's right, and so are you, Jerry. At this point, this deep in the season, you're, as a wide receiver, you're going to be doing things by rote, and you're going to be running patterns that you should be running all year There's nothing to forget about here. This is simple football stuff. Just like the drill instructors tell you in basic training. This is simple Army stuff. This is simple NFL football stuff. And you've got a quarterback now who at least is a little more mobile and is going to improvise, like you said, improvise on the run. And hey, I don't dislike Brian Hoyer either, but at this point, as we talked about last week, he's been regressing every game, not progressing. So obviously, you can't wait anymore. You got to do this now.
Absolutely. You're listening to the Sports Fix, J-Rock, Dr. Football. We're talking Browns. We're talking Johnny Manziel. And listen, Bruce, I see you in the chat room, brother. Absolutely. Josh Gordon. Wow, it takes a real genius to say he's got incredible athletic ability. He's got game-changing athletic ability. Bro, I don't deal well when people try to insinuate that I have agendas that are not true. If you want to, you can accuse me of being stubborn. You can accuse me of being set in what I say and sticking to it. You can accuse me of all good things like that. But you don't come at me like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. Josh Gordon is what he is. He's an athletic freak who does not study the playbook, who would prefer to be lazy if the ball's not coming to him. He'd prefer to run a 75% route. Why not save his energy for the route that is coming his way? That's just the realities. If you watch Josh Gordon play, he still has more physical ability than 75% of the people that defend him, and he's fast enough that you should just be able to throw the ball up and he can run it down. And that's the realities of it. Nothing backhanded about what I said there at all. The cat is clearly out there, and every player on the offense has talked about Josh Gordon this year being all over the place when it comes to the playbook and running the wrong routes and being all over the place. And it amazes me that somebody who had 10 weeks to do nothing but study the playbook did not study the playbook. And that it is game-changing because you know what? Last year, Norv Turner's offense was how many times can we throw the ball down the field so Josh Gordon can catch it? That's why we averaged 50 pass attempts a game when Norv Turner was the offensive coordinator. So guess what? It was throw Josh the ball, see Josh catch the ball. That's what it was. This year, it's timing routes. It's Kyle Shanahan's offense. Some people like it. Some people don't. Some people question the play calling, but it's a completely different offense, and it is not working well for Josh Gordon right now because he didn't study it. It's the kind of offense that if a guy like Josh Gordon knows it, he can dominate in this offense. There's been dominant receivers that have done that before. So Josh Gordon, I do believe that he can be a lot of things. His athletic talent is a lot of things. If he doesn't study the game and if he doesn't stop being lazy, it doesn't matter. And all of that are also part of the reason that he's one strike away from being out of the game, too. It's up here. It's not just on your legs and your hands and your chest and your speed. It's up here, too. And that's every bit as important. But Dr. Football, back to that. Didn't mean to go off on that there. I mean, Josh Gordon is a hell of a talent. But getting back to the Browns here and all the things, and by the way, Ryan Seymour, speaking of guys changing positions and stuff, Ryan Seymour is going to start again this week. I saw yesterday, and Bill, you and I have talked about the effect of Alex Mack being injured and what it did to this offense this season. Just obviously that's something that is hard for any team to overcome. I found it interesting that Ryan Seymour played this weekend when Nick McDonald, he was hurt, and Ryan Seymour graded out as the best center performance of anybody that's replaced Alex Mack of any game since then. Now, I don't know how much of that you credit to the Colts defense, but that's interesting too there because down these last 3 games, if the Browns are going to get things going with a rookie quarterback, it's the same thing. You've got to get that running game going and then be able to mix in the play action, the bootlegs, and then Johnny's legs start to come into the game plan as well there. So I think that's something interesting. A guy that a lot of people overlooked and said, oh, man, we're going with the 4th center here in Ryan Seymour, graded out very well, and he could perhaps be able to shore the things up a bit for the rest of the season there on the offensive line. We'll see. What do you think?
Yeah, and that's funny because we've been talking about this for weeks. The effect of Mac not being there, and every week this Browns team has